and gentlemen, it is February 9th, 2019, and this is FAWMtalk. I'm of course Juha, and with me as always, probably joining us soon, TC Elliott. I'm just gonna move right here until he comes back. How are you, TC? There we go. I know this was gonna be good.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. How are you, man?
I am
Visible?
doing well. Haha. Apparently when you turn the mic back on, it closes down the app on occasion. But I'm doing very well.
Yeah, that's a reasonable expectation.
Yeah, well, restarted. We're good to go.
Alright, so what have you been doing?
I have been not finishing songs. Starting songs, just not finishing songs.
Well, that is alright, I suppose. Finished, is what you call finished.
Well, at least I'd like to get at least a rough draft done at some point, but so that's completely unlike me. I can bash out a song, get something down. It might need revision, it might need polish. You know, it may not be 100% happy with it, but I can get a good form that I'm somewhat happy with and down and out fairly quickly. I like to do one song and then another. Every FAWM I'm always, working on. I'll have something in queue, a collaboration or something, but typically I'm working on one song at a time or at most two. But this week, for the last 3 days or 4 days or something like that, I've started several songs and I have not been able to finish them. And it's weird, lyrically more than anything. So I think our talks of the last couple of shows about lyric writing and trying to get better, it must have rubbed off on me in a critical way, because I don't know what it is.
That's not good. That's a bad omen.
But I'm sitting there with several songs. I can take a week off and still make the 14 with no problem. I just, I want them to be decent. And so it's not crisis mode, but it's been a long time since I've been in this situation. And it's not really writer's block. I still have ideas. It's just trying to get them right. Or to say what I want to say, and I'm not 100% sure I know what I want to say. So I don't know. It's a little bit of a struggle, but that's okay. I'm kind of welcoming the struggle. I'm kind of enjoying having to fight through it. I'm hoping that it makes me a better songwriter at the other side.
Yeah, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Yeah, that didn't
I
sound
can tell you're confident.
Yeah, it's definitely needed. No.
Well, thank you.
He's just waiting, like every week, just waiting for me to say something wrong. He's just.
Oh no! I was pretty harsh on you on a couple of shows, so I'm fully. I deserve any pushback you give. I'm definitely. Don't dish it out if you can't take it, right?
Mm-hmm. All right, let's go. Let's go to some songs. We got some good ones here today. This one is actually one of my favorite songwriters on FAWM. I've been liking his stuff a long time. This one is Sorry Than Safe by Phil Henry.
Make up your mind, 'cause it takes a steady heart to leave the plans you made behind. And we've both been here before. take this chance for you. I'd rather be sorry than safe. Say it loud. It's hard to hear you whisper through the noise and doubt. We'll drown it out. It takes a steady voice to make an echo sound. And we've both been here before. Our feet held to the flames. And for you, I would walk through that pain again. Be bold and be brave, and you can have this scared old heart to break. I'll lose and I'll wait. I'll take this chance for you. I'd rather be sorry than safe. Be bold and be brave, and you can have this scared old heart to break. I'll lose and I'll wait. I'll take this chance for you. I'd rather be sorry than safe. Be bold and be brave. I'd rather be sorry than safe. Be bold and be brave. I'd rather be sorry than safe.
Sorry Than Safe by Phil Henry. Like Dragon Dreams was saying on the chat room, that's a radio ready song.
Yeah, I agree.
I've been a
Sounds
fan of his sound for a long time. I think it was back in 2013. There was particularly this one song called DB Cooper that I was a big fan of, and I've been listening to it a lot, but I just realized that I must have misplaced it. I can't find it anymore. So that was a great one. Maybe it's on Spotify.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he wrote a song. I think he's the one that wrote a song years and years ago that he ended up taking to like the Kerrville Folk Music Festival or something. I hope I'm not getting him mixed up with another Falmer, but I think that was the case. And so yeah, I'll be honest with you. He's one of those that I've lost track of. I don't know if he participates every year.
Yeah, probably not. I don't think he never. I never saw him being very active in the community. So he posts. I think he posts quite a bit, at least something like every year. But I never see like many comments he's made on the forum or on other people's songs. So.
Yeah, but he's another one. It's one of those names that, I don't see a lot of that name. And the way FAWM kind of works sometimes is I tend to run into the same, a large number, but it seems like the same number of FAWMers over and over and over again. And that's one of the names that I don't remember seeing a lot of recently, but it popped up this year. And I immediately clicked over to check out what he had posted already, which it's just one of those names, where while it may not be a lot of interaction, I don't know that we've ever interacted, to be honest with you. But yeah, that I've always held in high regard from way, like you said, it was 2013, or it might have been before.
Well,
So, but that song, you know, they were saying the production values were fantastic, but the song was written very well.
Yeah.
The arrangement is good. The structure is good. The performance is good. I mean, it literally is, you know, like he was saying, it's radio ready.
and the hook.
I agree. Yeah, it's ready to go.
And the hook is like really, really good. It's like it's like a plane landing on that hook, and it's like, you're there.
Yeah.
Really good. I like that a lot.
It's like dismounting the uneven bars and sticking the landing.
Yeah. Kind of like, I'm not much of an gymnastic, but yeah.
Yeah. It's like mowing your lawn and not you have a perfect time around and finishing without having to go back and retrace your steps.
Yeah.
Is that good?
That's pretty good. We're all lawnmowers here. All right.
Especially this time of year in the northern hemisphere.
Now I'm starting to think, like, what did I want to talk about yesterday? Because I said I had a lot more than I wanted to talk about. Then you turn the recording off, and it's like, I don't know. It's like the Arctic wind blowing through. Well, we were talking about songwriting guidelines yesterday, so you said you don't really have any, but
not really.
I think they're fun. They're fun ways to challenge yourself. Like you said, you feel like you want to improve as a songwriter, and you're kind of using you're doing multiple songs simultaneously. That's one of those things that I've never really done. If I stop working on one song, then I never finish that one. So I have like a tunnel vision. I have to do from to completion everything.
Yeah, I am mostly like that. I tend to get a song from inspiration or from idea into some sort of sort of finished version, at least a draft. I mean, it might change, and then from that point I can work on it. I can come back to it, or, you know, if I'm, like, for instance, if I'm doing production or doing a full band recording as opposed to just guitar and voice with a handheld recorder or what have you. But the song, you know, most of the song is, you know, maybe not the arrangement necessarily, but most of the song is written. It's just how do you put that in final form. I will also sometimes, just thinking back, I can do, if I have a musical idea, a chord progression or a guitar riff or whatever, and I have no lyric inspiration at all, if there's no phrases or a melody, or even if there's a melody but none of the words seem to stick, I can do the music and then come back a few days later or a week later, and then sometimes that actually clears my mind enough where I can get an idea for it, or I can listen to what I have, and then that helps kind of let it sink in, I guess, and get an idea to do lyrically. So I can separate those. But this, having the music 90-80% done and having a little bit of a lyric on multiple songs, or starting the music but not maybe finishing it, but having a pretty good idea and not, I don't know, that's rare, and it's a little strange, and it's I'm wondering, I guess, but I do have a strategy to deal with it. So I came up with a little 5/4 guitar riff, and I came back to it. No lyrical ideas. The phrasing's a little odd. There's one little chord change. It's just not normal for me. It's not way out there or anything. And I was in the Slack chat last night, and Pearl was like, "Well, send it to me." So I just, okay, I've got the music done. I'm stuck. Send it to somebody else. And if she gets to the point where she's like, I don't have anything, and sends it back, then I'll send it to somebody else. And hopefully somebody out there can say, okay, I'll take this and turn it into I'll finish it or do something with it. So that's one of the other ones that I've started. It's just a guitar, most of the guitar throughout, kind of a song structure. I'll probably work on that, finish it up, and send it to another collaborator that I owe some music to, and so that helps separate it out and not to feel stuck.
That's an interesting way to work, because I really don't find myself working a lot with other people. So I've been trying to force myself to do it a little bit, but also I'm kind of lazy that way. So I made a forum post where I told, like, I want to do some sort of collaboration album or something, and a lot of people said, like, yeah, that sounds great. Then I was like, okay, well, can you maybe send me an email or come to the Slack chat and we can chat about the ideas? And most of them, like, nothing. And a few people came there, we had a little chat, we did, like, yeah, maybe this, maybe that, but, like, nothing came out of it. So in that sense, I'm kind of passive. So if it's all on me, like, I have to drive the whole thing, then typically I'm just like, I don't feel like being in that position.
Yeah, but I think when people are willing to collaborate, I think it's not necessarily, so there's a difference between kind of being in the driver's seat and guiding it and then doing it. And so I think a lot of, like, if you were to you posted that up and a lot of us were like, yeah, we can do that. But the idea is, like, you tell, like, if I'm signing up for that, it's like, you tell me what you want. And that could be really vague, but it doesn't mean if you say, give me a lyric, I'll see if I can put music to it, or give me a lyric and maybe we can bounce ideas back, or give me a lyric and maybe I'll throw one back and we can kind of work on it together, then we'll do the music or whatever, or I, send me a musical idea, a theme or something, and then I'll try to develop that and bounce it back. But if you give them that guideline, then I find that in collaborations and FAWM, you're more likely to get that back and forth. And then the other option is, which is, I think, most common for me, definitely, and I see it a lot, is there's a lyric post or there's a music post, and then somebody else takes what's already been done, and then they do their part. So it's a collaboration that you're not doing the full song, but it's not a collaborative effort, like going back and forth to finish it. And while that does happen quite a bit, I think it's a lot more rare, at least for me and during FAWM, which is kind of, I don't know. I think it's just the structure and the restrictions you have on an online community of being easy for me to work on something separate from you, have a part finished or mostly done, and then somebody else take it.
Sure, that makes sense. It's just the way I've usually worked with other projects is it's a very different situation. It's typically not like I send something to another person and then they'll, like, just keep adding on it. Or changing it or whatever. So I guess it was, like, my fault that I didn't more explicitly state that I wanted to do a little bit more of a discussion on the subject, and at the same time I didn't really understand how collaborations work. I've done some, but it's like 5-6 years ago. The ones I've been, even longer than that, really. I haven't done much. It's been like 2013, 12, around that time when I did my collaborations, and after that it's been kind of quiet on that front. Sure, but yeah, that's good advice. I don't know if that many people know how that, like, works smoothly. I mean, of course, people have ideas as to how you could start a project like that, but if there's, like, some sort of best practices on how to get a song moving, or like a songwriting session moving, but it would be kind of helpful to have some sort of short post of it.
I'm trying to remember. I know that there was Platt. Actually, or Cow Exchange actually had a document, and it wasn't how to get it started so much, but it was guidelines. So it would say, like, music bits, how to start your track so that it would line up. The tools, and this was many years ago, so the tools at the time on, where you wanted to keep the document so other people could work on, so you could have multiple people working on the same lyric.
Yeah.
And I think it came out of the Sugar Crew song that ended up on one of the FAWMpalations, and then maybe Errol had something. I'm trying to remember, but there was a little bit of that. And the problem, which is really good, guidelines on how you share tracks, but that's not really how you collaborate. That's just how to make things easier to collaborate. And I think that every collaboration can be a little different, but for me, if it's my experiences, it's either somebody either has music that's basically done or a lyric that's done or basically done, and then they kind of go to somebody else, and then if there's questions or smoothness, they'll go back and forth a little bit. Sometimes it's not necessary, or more often it's two people are like, what do you want to do? You give me this, I'll do this. And so at the beginning, you kind of have an idea of what you're going to be responsible for, and it kind of relieves that when you're in a back and forth collaboration where, well, what about this idea? And then you wait for feedback, and then you give feedback, and then you start working on the lyric or the music. And then it's a lot more involved process. And in FAWM, when you're trying to do so much in a fairly short amount of time, that it seems like it takes up a lot of time, even though it's not that much time. It takes your energy and your concentration for a longer period of time, for days or a week to get something done. And I just feel like the time constraints keep that from, unless you know the other person fairly well, or it's somebody that if it's one of the people that are in the Slack chat regularly that you can communicate with on a regular basis, that does make it harder. It's just more difficult.
That definitely makes sense. I'm not saying that the people should or somehow like obligated to follow some sort of idea that I have, but well, it's just, I guess it's one of those cases where my thoughts about the process and the reality didn't really meet, and I didn't quite know why. So, but like you said, in Slack chat, we've been chatting a little bit with New Jacks about a collaboration, and it's tough getting it moving, because we have ideas and we talk about ideas, we talk about styles and what the song is gonna be about, but just getting it started, it's kind of a I don't know how it goes. I guess it has to be like one person's contribution at first. Like I make some sort of base for the track, and then we start to say like, okay, what can we do with this? But have you ever had a situation where the collaboration was like, what sort of different situations have you had, or different types of collaborations?
I've had collaborations that failed. I've had collaborations that worked, obviously. I think setting the expectations to start is very important. And you're absolutely right. Somebody has to take that first step. You can talk about it, but somebody's got to say, okay, I'm going to come up with a riff, or I'm going to come up with a line, or I found this chord progression and we were talking about this. What do you think about that? And what direction do you want to take it? And that back and forth, I think, is the most rewarding. Where, like in your example, you with New Jacks, if somebody came up and said, hey, I was just messing with this, what do you think about this? And it could be 4 bars or 8 bars or 16 bars, it doesn't matter. But that, when you get that feedback saying, oh, I like that, what if you did this, then that gets the creative process going. For me, I think the most collaborations I do, especially in the last 3 years, have been seeking out a lyric post and putting music to it. But part of that is because they're sitting out there ready to go, and then when I whenever when I pick up the guitar or when I'm reading through or in my timeline, I don't have to wait or postpone the creative process.
Yeah.
I can just say, oh, I've got I read this, I've got an idea, I'm going to start working on a little bit. Okay, this is the idea. Contact the person, say, hey, is it okay? I've got an idea. Is it okay if I put music to it? And then they say, oh, somebody's already working on this one. Then I've got two choices, and I can either go ahead and finish the musical idea and then just write my own lyric, and I've done that before, or I can read more of their lyric posts or other lyric posts to see if something else will fit that idea, and then kind of marry the two together. And I've done that, but I also work with the same. I say the same, but there's quite a few lyricists that I've done a collaboration with over the last 2-3 years, and like the people that I've worked with multiple times, they're very easy to work with, but their part's mostly done, and then the only time that there's really a problem is if, okay, the meter didn't quite work here, or the arrangement didn't quite work structure wise to sing it. Is it okay if I make this change, or do you want to make this change? So you're doing editing more than co-writing at that point, but making it work.
So I guess the problem here is also that I'm kind of trying to impose some sort of story writing disciplines that I have acquired onto the songwriting. So I'm feeling like if I'm doing a collaboration with someone, the whole thing should be some sort of collaborative effort, so that you don't just get a lyric from somebody, but the lyrics themselves are a collaboration. So you have ideas from both parties, and it grows into something that neither person would have done individually, but it's like some sort of symbiosis.
Yeah, I think those can be so they're, in my opinion, those are the hardest ones to do, especially in FAWM and 5090, because like we talked about, it takes a little bit more back and forth, so there's more time involved where you're on somebody else's schedule. But I think that some of the things that have worked in the past is, you take a Google document and you start it, and you have a theme or a blank page, and somebody comes up with some lines, and then somebody else, and I've done this before. So somebody writes a verse and somebody else writes the second verse, or somebody will do the first two lines of a chorus and the second person, or you see this verse and you're like, I'm not sure, and then off to the right side of that, you do a different line. So you're not erasing anything the other person's done, but you're getting an alternate line or another direction. And so there can be a way that you're not just waiting on an email or waiting on somebody else to do something. You can do that back and forth, and it's hard to do online even today with all the tools we have compared to, say, 10 years ago. It's still harder to do that. I think just clearly define, okay, you write a verse, and then I'm going to write a verse, but that is back and forth where you get this and you're playing off of each other, but it's still not, it's still segregated. It's you're doing your part and I'm doing my part. And that nothing beats having somebody in the room with you where you're immediately have the idea with the guitar or with a synth. Sorry, my screen just blacked out. And you get that immediate feedback and see what's going on, and you can work with somebody right there, and that's that immediate feedback, because anytime you delay that feedback, it makes it harder to, songwriters are kind of fragile in a lot of different ways, and you want that immediate response. And I say that in a very good way. It's a balance to be creative and not be self-critical or too critical, or to think that somebody, if I haven't heard back in 2 days, maybe they didn't like what I gave them, and it's not, it's just all those doubts kind of creep in. I think creative people tend to go that way. Obviously, not every creative person's like that, but I think that tends to happen where you kind of picture in your mind the worst case scenario instead of the best case scenario, and it just makes it hard. That being said, 90% plus of the collaborations that I've done have been positive experiences, and even more than that, I would say. And even I mentioned there was one way back, I think it was 2009, there was a failed, like a random collaboration that we never finished a song. We got started and never finished it. And even that was a positive experience. It wasn't a negative experience. We just didn't get a song at the end of it. No. So.
It takes a certain type of mindset, I guess. But especially like we discussed, it's all the limitations and time limitation, all the pressure and people's lives, and all gets in the way of of the thing that really matters, the creative process. It's what I love, but yeah, I guess I gotta make some, how do you say, concessions.
Yeah.
Kind of like give up a little bit on my dream songwriting scenario. All right, let's go to another song then. This one is by a person called Julie Marie Smith, and it's a song called "You're My Everything."
I will never let you leave, even when you get fed up of me. I will lock you up in my room, show you how much I love you. I'm gonna put you in your studio and make you play the piano. I will write me a love song for you to sing, so you remember everything, everything. You're my everything. I'll make you so happy, baby, you'll see, and you won't ever want for anything. I'll treat you so well, you won't ever want to leave. I'll even let you ride home to your family. Every now and then we can go outside, so you can remember what that life was like. Other people always getting in our way. My way's better, baby, my way, I say. And I will never let you leave. Together forever, happily. Gonna lock you up in your room, then I'll have my way with you.
Julie Marie Smith and "You're My Everything." Yeah, it's a kind of a creepy one, that. But in a good way. Did you? I think you're muted.
Just kidding. Yeah. No, I really like that one. It's definitely has that creepy factor, and that ending there you can easily miss, but that's a very nice touch. It's I'm a sucker for a good murder ballad, and this one kind of hits those same notes in a way. So
Yeah, I guess I'm learning that about you. We were talking about in the Slack chat one day about dynamic range and how some people miss it. I don't really, but in tracks like that, it gives a little bit something to the music when you start really quiet, and it's like you're kind of fiddling with the volume knob, thinking that is this like the right volume, and then like it grows and something like large hit you. But then there are people who feel like, alright, when a song starts, you should be able to set your volume up to a level and never touch it again. So it's like there's two sides to that argument.
well, I like a balance there. I like having the dynamic sections, the a change, and I mean everything, but that doesn't have to necessarily be volume. It can be energy, so like distorted guitars to a clean guitar, so it seems less energetic, and then it's more energetic, and you can take the quieter spot and raise it a little bit closer and still have a difference. So I like, but I definitely see what you're saying, and I have a tendency, if it's low, to turn it up just enough, because it's happened in FAWM a lot, and some really cool songs where you're expecting the boom, the chorus to hit, and you don't want it to be cranked up, to 11, and then the loud part hit, and it rattle your speakers or your ears, and that's happened before. So but I think it's a, you know, when done on purpose, especially, or when you have that effect. I mean, that I like that dynamic. I struggle with that sometimes in my own music, on having the dynamic where you have enough change. It's not just a guitar all the way through, where you can build and have have the music tell the story as much as the lyric tell the story.
Yeah, and of course it depends on the genre too, because in sort of orchestral music you got I guess many pieces where it starts like really like a low rumble that's barely audible, and then it grows into this massive, grandiose thing, and that's not a lot of music these days. I mean, I listen to a lot of stuff that hits Spotify, and of course a lot of that is also classical music, but it's compressed to the max, and it's kind of the sound of today. But I wonder, is there going to be a time when that changes, or maybe like audio hardware is going to change in a way that allows more sort of I don't know.
Yeah, so I've been following the I don't know if it's Dynamic Range Day or what they called it for I don't know, several years now, 4 or 5 years, or maybe a little bit longer than that. But about when it hit kind of mainstream articles and stuff, we're talking about it. And so there's a couple of things there. You know, if you have a quiet bit of a song and then a loud bit of a song, and how much that happens, you know, that's a dynamic range. Mm-hmm. But really, just if you have the chorus or the loudest part of your song, how just by that, how squashed it is to where you're losing dynamics within the section, to me is probably the larger issues, to where you're losing, you know, it's really just losing sound quality. So if you're using that limiter and getting it up there, you've actually lost. If you don't have that dynamic change, even within a system, it really loses power. And then the other part was, like, if you listen to AC/DC Back in Black, which I grew up with that album, it was I was pretty young when I first heard it, so I really like it. But if you put that on right next to a modern hard rock song, you know, just the level is, like you were saying, you have to turn one up to be the same level as another one. But I prefer them to be down a little bit, because it gives you so much more headroom, and it just sounds better. So turn the volume up an extra, you know, 2 notches. And to me, I would rather have that good sound quality and maybe have to fiddle song to song than to have it all the same. And eventually it tires your ears out. You don't, especially with distorted guitars where they're so squashed, and everything just starts sounding like mud to me. So I don't know. I pay attention to it a little bit when I'm doing my own music. I look at that. If I'm doing something that I expect to share, like on Bandcamp or something other than just on FAWM, that's something I look at when I get that final stereo track off, is to see how much of a dynamic range in that one song there is.
No.
Because I think it's important not to do too much with it.
I think if everyone was doing like what you say, like having a lot of headroom in their tracks, I wouldn't mind it. Definitely not. But it's just, I guess I've gotten used to it, because so much of the music these days is that stuff, and I like the music in general, the pop music, and well, not like the pop music, but like rock music, metal music, even the little bit poppier stuff, and it is typically compressed a lot these days, and I don't mind it at all. It's just, it's what music is to me, and I typically just pay more attention to cool melodies and sick rhythm sections.
I don't mind the compression, and I don't mind a fair amount of compression, but I forget which one of the Metallica albums that they had just brick walled to the point where it lost, you know, it just lost any sound quality. After the third song, my ears were just tired. It's like, I guess there's just a point where you lose so much of the dynamic range that within the song itself, you just lose that like before we were talking about having the arrangement of one being louder and then another section being softer, or having something like that. But when you're just brick walling everything to a point. Yeah. So I think there definitely can be a negative. Now that, a single song, if I listen to a song off that album, I can't remember which album it was, but it was on the internet talking about how bad it was. But if I listen to one song off of it, it doesn't necessarily sound that bad to me. If I'm really paying attention, I can tell, or if I compare it to something else. But after a couple of songs, then I really notice it. So if I'm listening to like on Spotify or a mix, I don't necessarily will notice it for one song. I'm focusing, like you said, you're seeing it as a song written well. Was it arranged well? What are the melodies? There's a lot of other things that go into it as well.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'd skip like songs that just sound bad automatically. So maybe I just never happen to listen to music like that. But also at the same time, I feel like you mentioned the Metallica album. Maybe it was the lack of headroom and just brick wall limiting everything. But could it be just other types of sound quality issues? Okay, maybe it's just mixed bad. Some guitar pedals or something, they just have bad sounds.
Yes, for that particular one, and I wish I could remember the album and the mixing engineer.
Which ones are there? Like Death Magnetic?
I think that might have been it.
Yeah.
But it was going around, and at the time I was reading a lot of the music production sites and
because they don't have,
trying to get a little better.
I kind of remember this too. Like this Saint Anger, and that was 2003, and then 2008 was Death Magnetic. So it's probably one of those.
Yeah. But even the engineer, like they were like, oh, this engineer is really good, but this just doesn't sound as good. And he came out with a statement that said, you do what the customer asked for. So the band wanted this, so this is what we gave them, And he said, and if my preference, I would have done a different mix. It would have had more space, but this is what they wanted. This is what I gave them. And he kind of got some flack for that from the band and some people that were, loosely associated, coming back, saying you should take credit for the work you did. But he's absolutely right, and I think we were talking about it either on the show or in the chat room a while back. It's like if you're mixing for somebody else, you can have what you think is the best mix, but if they want something changed, if they're paying you to do it, like they're the customer. You gotta, and there might be tricks to fool them into thinking that you've squashed it more than you think or changed something, but you're really catering to them, and so you're putting your art or your mixing skills for somebody else's vision. Of course, if you're hiring somebody to mix or produce your album, you should listen to what they're doing and like that, so that then take what they give you, because that's what you're paying for, instead of trying to turn them into somebody they're not, or have them do something that's maybe not in their wheelhouse. But that's all part of the back and forth. So,
yeah, there are some, like, producers can really ruin albums sometimes, and more accurately, I think the lack of a good producer, because there are some bands that have had like a producer in the past, then they're like, no, we're producing our own stuff now, and it's just awful. It's just completely awful. Yeah.
Well, I think. Oh, and Dragon Dream says it was Death Magnetic that was that I was referring to. But I mean, I think sometimes the producer can get maybe a little more credit than they deserve, or a lot more of the blame than they deserve, and that relationship with the artist or with the band. But the role of the producer can be different for every project. But I think, from what I've read with interviews of people and people like you were talking about, where you have a band that has been produced, then they decide we're going to produce our own. It drags on, instead of recording for a month or or 6 weeks and having an album. It's gone on for six months, and they're spending all this money and they're doing this. It's because when you have somebody, whether it's their vision or not, but they're ultimately guiding the project for good or bad, it keeps you like, look, guys, do this. Look, guys, we got this goal. We have to stay on track. It's like a basketball team not having a coach. You can have the best players, but if there's not somebody that can be a little bit neutral on the sidelines, giving the advice and saying, let's try this, let's try that.
Absolutely.
It's easy to, before you know it's the end of the game and you're behind because you haven't focused on the big picture. I love that analogy, by the way. That's a great analogy.
Yeah, that was really, really good. So I enjoyed that one.
I don't get them very often. Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because one of the bands that has done this is Dream Theater, the mild progressive metal love of teenage years. But they were produced. They were heavily produced like back in the 90s, and they like to write these really long progressive songs, and oftentimes the producer would be like, no, that's not gonna go into the album, and this song you have to cut these verses out and just like do these more, because then it's more like a pop song. And the band hated it, and now they're producing themselves. But I think they actually have an opposite problem, whereas they write their whole album in like 3 days. They pretty much record it in like a weekend, and it never gets really produced. It's like it's your first draft, and then they're such an amazing instrumentalists that they just play whatever comes to their mind, and it's perfect, and then it's on the album, and it's like already going to the record store.
Yeah.
So I think there's like an opposite problem, whereas they're all old albums, they could be in the production for 6 months or whatever, and things got changed and things got better, but there it's just whatever comes out goes out.
Yeah. I mean, I don't. I guess it kind of goes back to like your vision for your art too. Yeah. So you want the the songwriters. Like we're all songwriters. A lot of us produce music also, but we're all songwriters at FAWM. That's the whole writing month thing. And you'd think that, okay, the writer has the performer, they have that final say, but having that, I guess, extra ear is important. And I would say the producer can have a couple of roles. One of those is how the album sounds as opposed to what the hit is. Like, okay, we're going to, like, this is the track order. I think this is a good song and this isn't a good song. Or I think you should do this in this song. Let's cut this. That can be separate from, okay, this is how we're going to record. This is the kind of the sound we're going for, getting a wide open sound or a really tight sound or what have you. And all of those things, each producer probably has, just like each performer has different strengths and weaknesses. They might be more proficient or better at one part than another part. And so I don't want to confuse the producer with that guy that's from the record company saying, you got to have the hit, or we've got to make this, which is not really, I mean, that's part of it, but that's not really producing the best sound of the album or getting the best out of the band. That's trying to get the best hit or the most commercial thing out there, which I think there's some value to that. If you don't have any focus on that, then like you were saying, you could have something that could have been maybe streamlined a little bit, been a little bit tighter, more focused, and have a bigger impact. And then of course you can take it the other way where you lose the creativity in it. Jimi Hendrix famously said, talking about Purple Haze, it had 20 verses and then they cut it down to 3, and he wasn't exactly happy about that. But on the other hand, I would love to hear a 20-verse Purple Haze, but I'm not sure that would be my favorite one to put on the record player and listen to.
I know what you mean. Also, one story I remember somebody telling me, I think it was like my music teacher, and I haven't found a source for this, so like take it with a grain of salt, but it was about Michael Jackson and his when they were producing the song Thriller, or the album Thriller, and they had multiple, I don't remember how many, but I recall it was like something like a 50 or 100 different versions of the song Thriller before they landed on the one that ended up on the album. So that's always fascinated me, the sort of, I don't know, work ethic where you just keep on working on it until it's like, you always make it a little bit more better. It's just keep chiseling it to perfection. And at the end, you got Thriller, which is like arguably one of the greatest pop songs ever conceived.
Yeah, one of the best-selling albums in the history of pop music.
Yeah,
for a reason. I mean, yeah, I think there's some validity to that. I think Michael Jackson was such a strange, in the best sense, musical genius, that and unfortunately, you know, a lot of things in his personal life overshadow that. But you know, the music wise, surrounding himself with great engineers and producers and musical collaborators, being the way he went about music was so unique. But that's a good example where, you know, I think he had the sound, most of the sound in his head, like especially in composing, where he's got parts and he's coming out with every part of the song, but that still having that producer in that row where they're working on it and honing it, and it made it to that point. It shows you when you have a producer and an artist that are working together for the same goal, and they're really, you know, how good it can be, and how when that relationship's off just a little bit, how it can even, you know, maybe not reach the same height or even be a negative where it's a bad experience. And there have been times when it's been a poor experience, but the music came out was awesome. So, you know, there's just like writing a song or just like collaborating, there's no one way of doing it or one style or what have you.
Especially today, I think there's a value in trying to make different versions of your song because it's so easy compared to what it was like 30 years ago. Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of Shania Twain had the Blue and Red album. It's been probably 20 years ago when they did that. When Mutt Lange was, I guess she was married to him, and they did a country version and then a rock version, or a pop version, I guess.
Yeah.
And it was, I think it was all the same songs, just redone, and it was like a dual disc. Actually, I need to check.
There have been a couple of similar kind of cases in recent years. I remember one. Damn, I can't remember the name of the band, but there was like it was they had like a metal version of an album, and then they had some sort of more chill folky version of that same album, where you had like some orchestra strings and acoustic instruments, and then you had like a metal album. It was like some sort of Storm and something. But I can't remember what it was. So.
Me neither, but I do remember something vaguely reading about that. I have a vague recollection of that. I'm writing it down so I can check it out later.
All right, let's go to the track here. So this one is by Theresa J. This actually this name gave me flashbacks to our previous FAWMtalk in 2000 whatever when we did the post FAWM show, and the last song of the whole FAWMtalk was by Theresa J, and it's definitely the same sound. I mean, instantly recognizable. But so this is by Theresa J. The song is called That Little Red Dress.
Girl, put your good blue jeans on. Boy, we're going out. It's been a crazy week. Now let's go have some fun. We can dance the night away, do whatever we want. I'll put my makeup on and I'll wear that dress, the one you like. Wear that little red sleeveless red dress, the one you like. I put a spell on you, seems you just can't speak, but your eyes are talking as you stare at me. It's just the two of us now, we can do whatever we want. I've got my makeup on and I'm wearing that dress, the one you like. I wear that little red dress, the one I know you like. That little red dress, the one that fits me tight. That little red dress that leaves you all tongue-tied. I wear that little sassy, flirty, curvy, sleeveless red dress, the one you like. The night is young, you got me and I've got you. The night is young, you got me and I've got you. Oh, the night is young, you got me and I've got you. Yeah, the night is young, you got me and I've got you. I'll wear that little red dress, the one I know you like. That little red dress, the one that fits me tight. That little red dress that leaves you all tongue-tied. I'll wear that little sassy, flirty, curvy, sleeveless red dress. That little red dress, the one I know you like. That little red dress, the one that fits me tight. That little red dress that leaves you all tongue-tied. I wear that little sassy, flirty, curvy, sleeveless red dress, the one you like.
On That Little Dress by Theresa J.
Yeah, I love that chorus. That's awesome.
Yeah, people are talking about dynamics in the chat room, but I think there's a lot of dynamics in that because I think the energy of the song really swells to the chorus in some weird way. It's not like there are extra instruments coming on, or I don't know what it is. There's like more energy to the voice and to the playing in the chorus.
Yeah, I think in the performance, especially in the vocal on that chorus, there's definitely a change in dynamic from the verse, for the very beginning of the song into the chorus, and even maybe even from the first chorus to the last chorus. It's sometimes the dynamics that you feel are fairly subtle. It doesn't have to be a big volume change or a big, but I've noticed that there was I guess I kind of purposely tried to do that in a song not too long ago, where when I was singing, instead of having the full voice that I had on the chorus, I tried to tone it back just a hair. Not that there was a volume change, but just the full, I don't know, attitude or the way I was singing on the verses, so that when the chorus hit, there was a change. And honestly, I'm not a good enough singer or performer to be able to pull that off naturally. It's something I have to focus on and try to get right. And I think that's something that Theresa probably, at least it sounds like, that's a little bit more natural for her. She's a good singer that I definitely felt that difference there.
Yeah, I don't know. You don't think that comes naturally to you? Just if you're singing a verse, you kind of like slouching, getting like a little bit quieter, and then when it starts rising up, you get like more energy in the voice, and then when it hits the chorus, you're like, yeah, boy.
Yeah, so yes, I think so, but lately I've really focused on maybe when I'm writing and recording, trying to have that dynamic between verse and the chorus, or between the pre-chorus and the chorus, so that as I'm writing and as I'm recording, I'm kind of thinking of the way I want the mix to be when I'm done. And even when I do full band mixes, typically it's not a lot of instruments. It's typically an acoustic guitar, maybe 2 electric guitar tracks, bass, drums, and then a vocal or maybe a backup vocal or a harmony vocal just in places. So it's a fairly, even though it's what I call a more full production, it's still not huge number of tracks. So I try to think how if I look at it going in to writing and that, then I think that's in there, but it's more like, say, the melody. So when I go to the chord, the melody, maybe goes up to the top of the range as opposed to the bottom. And then that naturally gets me when I'm singing a higher note. Typically, I have to sing a little bit stronger for that. But if I don't think about it when I'm recording or when I'm singing, it's not like, I guess it's something that I've had to focus on in order to really make noticeable. I think everybody has that tendency to emphasize the good parts, like if you're singing along with the radio, but in my own music, it's definitely something I feel I need to focus more on to get right and become something where it's more of a natural, so that when I'm singing, it's a performance. And I'm getting there. I'm much better this year than I was last year, being able to sing the song, maybe sing it again, and then when I go into mix, having 2 tracks I can play with, maybe comp, and having a pretty good vocal without, don't use, pitch correction or having misphrased words or all these things, and not have to think about everything and kind of take the life out of the performance and just be able to sing. And I'm just now kind of scratching that edge.
It is kind of interesting though, because to me, it's how I write songs is typically if I'm doing some sort of rock song or I start with guitar, I lay the guitar tracks down over a click. Then I play the drums over the guitar, I play the bass. And when I have all those things going on already, I start to do the vocals. And in skirmishes, how I often do this is I put the like I have my track ready, I have my mic ready, and I come up with a line in my head. And when I've got a line, I hit record, and I record that line. I hit stop, then come up with another line, then hit record that line, and then like keep going until the whole song is done. And to me, I find that I don't know if I just start like kind of easy. Typically, I think verses for me are kind of melodic. I don't want them to feel too energetic. It's just I don't. Maybe it's just the way I've always listened to music. It's the when you get the singer's voice, it's typically in the verses, it's kind of mellow and just like down there. And then when the chorus starts to approach, I just push more. I'm like, yeah, this is the part. And it just naturally like evolves to that point. I never think about it. So it's just like... it feels to me like this is what the song needs now. This is where it needs to go.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to me hearing like you have a more methodical process or thought process to that the whole songwriting thing.
Yeah, I think part of it may be style of music, like, because I do, lately especially, I've been doing a lot of songs that have been, like, I can play them on the acoustic guitar and perform them, and then when I have a more full arrangement, it's just a more fleshed out version of it, so it's not, I'm not having to make concessions from one to the other, so I guess the acoustic basically is the same in both versions, and so in that acoustic sing especially, that's even more important to have that dynamic in the vocal and the guitar playing, because you have nothing else. You can't add electric guitars when you're only playing an acoustic guitar to make it more thick or more full or whatever. And so I do think that some of that is innate, or some of it's just, we've been listening to music our whole lives, and so that comes out. So I definitely think that that's part of it. But really focusing on it for me and really making it intentional has been, I guess, paying off dividends, where I'm noticing it when other people do it and it makes it seem flawless. I wanted to say something about, like you were talking about, that seems strange to me, where you're going to write a line and sing it and then write it and sing it. Although I've kind of worked that way a little bit as well. But there have been times when I've been recording a song and I'll do all the verses So I'll go to verse 1 and I'll sing it once or twice. I'll go to verse 2 and sing it once or twice. Verse 3, sing it once or twice. And then I'll come back and I'll do the choruses. And I have a habit of singing every chorus instead of doing one chorus and then getting it right and then copying it.
Yeah.
I'll sing the first chorus and the second chorus. And if there's a third chorus, the third chorus. And I might sing each one of those twice. That gives me a lot of material to work for because I've just discovered in the past, it's a little better now, but in the past, I needed as much material as possible to get the right phrasing, to get on key, to get it to where it wasn't, till I didn't hear all the negatives. And I think we're most critical for ourselves. Yeah. But something that I noticed was a lot of times I started singing the third verse first, and then going back to the first verse and singing the third verse again at the end as if I didn't do it, almost as a warm-up, because my vocal got stronger as I was singing it to a point. Yeah. Even if it was warmed up, even if I had done everything the right way, but sometimes that loses that where a natural, like, not tentative isn't the right word, but it really comes into its own by the time the end of the song comes and it's really gotten into it in that last chorus. Mm-hmm. I lose something because of the way I was recording the. Yeah. So I guess at other times I'll record a vocal through the whole song, and then I might do that twice. And then I'll listen back, and if there's something or phrasing or something, I'll just record that one verse that maybe wasn't just right, and then and kind of comp it from that, or see if I have to, or just have more material. And I found that when I do it that way, there is kind of a natural progression from beginning of song to end of the song. But because I don't do that typically, maybe that's why I've been focused on the dynamics so much.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, it could be. It's still kind of interesting. I mean, the way what I described earlier is just like what I do for skirmishes, because it's short on time. And in skirmishes, I just take one chorus and copy it everywhere. That's like fine enough. We had an idea like in the pre-show that we should do some sort of give people challenges in the show, and everyone can do the challenges. But I don't know. We never started to do that. But I had an idea for a challenge based on what we discussed. So like you could have a challenge for like the. I guess this is based also on Theresa's track. So you could have a challenge where you have like your vocals and one instrument, and then you just do one chord progression for everything. So you could have like 1, 4, 5, 1 for all the verses, all the choruses, and you have to find a way to like give all the parts, differentiate them, their energy levels in some other way.
Yeah,
that would be interesting to hear what people come up with.
I think maybe that Nancy had that as one of the weekly challenges way back in like 2010-ish, maybe.
All right.
Yeah, so it was same chord progression all the way through the song, and there were some examples that are really cool. I can't think of any right off top of my head, but like there are popular songs that have the same chord progression, basically beginning to end or all the way through.
Yeah.
And it can be a challenge. But I think that is an excellent exercise. I think it's a great challenge to bring back. But I think it's a great exercise because it forces, like we were talking about, having that dynamic change. Excuse me. I think it forces you to really think about how you're going to arrange the song. And if it's one vocal and one instrument, what do you do to make that really hones the arrangement and the structure? That additional limitation of having just one voice and instrument would make it even more challenging, and I think very rewarding. It might be something that I actually try to do.
Yeah, we could post that on the forum, so let's see what kind of
good idea.
Participation we get. Yeah,
right.
That's about it for today. We went a little bit overboard, but hey, it's Saturday, so what the heck? And the next show is going to be Monday, and it's going to be 6 p.m. Central. So a little bit later than our typical time, but I understand you have some sort of work thing, so we gotta push it a little bit.
Yep. I work later next week than I did this week, so won't be able to get home in time for an earlier start. So you're accommodating my schedule a little bit. I appreciate that.
Yeah, anytime. I mean, you did accommodate last time we did this, like, a little bit, just a
little bit.
Yeah. So
yeah.
So we're cool. No need to thank me.
Right. Well, I appreciate it nonetheless.
Yeah, of course. What else were I gonna say?
No.
Oh yeah, if any of you want to send your friends or coworkers or whoever to be a guest on our show, just just let us know via mail. What was the address again? 5700.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was it. Just 5700.
Yeah.
FAWMtalk Lane.
So just send us a postcard or a comment on Slack chat or whatever. We are always happy to have guests on our show, and that's the way I prefer it. But I mean, this is fun too. But it's when you get more people, it's like, geez, it feels like a party. So I agree. Very open to that.
Yes.
And for our last track here, we have a song by Dusty Mason. And this one is called Heavy Coat. So until Monday, I'll see you everyone.
Bye.
We've all got on our heaviest coats. We've all got to carry the heaviest load. People, there's a bug in the code. Man ain't the kind, no, he's brutally cold. Keep your hands in your pockets and your eyes pointed down the road. Button up and zip it. Better watch your lip, kid, before you get it froze off on a statue of a saint. Button up and zip it. You better watch your lip, kid. You might get it froze on a statue of a saint. It's one for none, none for all. It's hard to duck a fast pitch ball. Keep your hands in your pockets and your eyes pointed down the road. Button up and zip it. You better watch your lip, kid, before you get it froze off on a statue of a saint. People, there's a bug in the code. Gonna need a heavier coat. People, there's a bug in the code. You're gonna need a heavier coat. There's a bug in the coat.